All right, guys, what's going on? Nobody asked for it, but you're getting it anyway. The 4-week insane mini shred, aggressive cut, whatever you want to call it, the transformation. As you can see from the thumbnail, I went from fluffy, bloated sack of bloat cell to kind of less bloated, kind of a little bit leaner. Looks good in the gym, but then, you know, outside of the gym, I look flat and small. We got the shreds sort of coming in, and, you know, it didn't take too long. But anyway, guys, yeah, I'm gonna give you the full breakdown of basically my whole protocol, exactly how I went from 192.5 pounds to about 179 pounds in 4 weeks, and basically kept all my muscle. I not only maintained my strength, but went up in strength on a crap ton of my lifts. You can 100% achieve very similar results if and only if you really make sure you do everything properly, because I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I've done so many cuts in the past. Not once have I done it right up until now. This is the first time I feel like I've actually nailed everything. In the past, I would lose muscle, or I wouldn't lose fat quick enough, or I would just be super unhappy with the way it went. But I'm extremely pleased with this cut, so I figured I would break everything down that I did and pretty much explain to you guys exactly how you can kind of replicate the process on your own. Obviously, if you have someone like a coach like myself, it's gonna be a lot easier to get through the process. There's gonna be a lot less guesswork. You're gonna be able to just have a smoother time overall. But if you're looking to just do things independently, listen, no hard feelings. You know, I get it. You don't want me as your coach. You don't want me yelling at you. You'll have to talk to me on the phone every week, bro. That's the worst, dude. Listen, I know I try to plug my coaching all the time, but like the one downside of my coaching is you got to talk to my dumbass every single week. Yeah, every single week you got to talk to me. Good luck dealing with that for more than 3 weeks, bro. You're going to want to lose your mind. You'll be like, yo, this dude sucks, man. No, I'm just joking. I love talking to my clients, bro. It's fucking highlight of my day, man. Without further ado, let's get into the aggressive cutting guide. I'm actually super pumped. I'm super pumped because on the treadmill this morning, after I got a sick chest pump at the gym, I decided, let me write out a guide for this video. Let me write a full PDF guide on how to get peeled, bro. How to do it in a short amount of time, how to do it properly, how to not lose muscle, and like, it's super in depth. So I'm gonna actually drop the whole guide in the description. I'm gonna give you guys the PDF for a small fee of clicking the fucking button. Yeah, that's right. I'm not charging shit for this thing. I'm not charging shit because it took me 40 minutes to write on a treadmill. Some motherfuckers would charge for that, you know? Some people are scummy out there, but Coach Drew, I'm a real one, bro. I don't mean to glaze myself, but like, you get value over here, man. You get value. It's enough prefacing, you know, enough yapping before we get into the actual nitty gritty, before we start picking our noses here, really digging for gold, you know what I'm saying? Let's get right into it, bro. I'm gonna pop up the PDF on the screen for you guys, and then you'll see my face. It's gonna go from this whole portion of the screen to this small portion of the screen, right? So now you can see the actual stuff that matters. Get my dumbass talking face out of your way. So let's get right into it. Aggressive cutting guide. First things first, how many calories are we gonna be eating? This is the fundamental thing we need to figure out, because we need to put ourselves in a pretty steep deficit here. So ideally, best case scenario is you already know your maintenance and you already have been tracking your calories, tracking your body weight. Either you have been at maintenance, maintaining your body weight, and you know the exact amount of calories you're eating, and you know the exact amount that you need to eat to maintain that. So if you don't know any of that, I would just use a TDEE calculator online, or I wrote one myself. I'll also link that in the description. You can just use the calculator that I wrote out with the help of ChatGPT. I think it's a little bit better than just the online ones, to be honest. It's got a little bit more variables. But once you find your maintenance, generally an aggressive cut means you're going to be eating at least 500 below your maintenance, usually close to 1,000, 1,500, sometimes 2,000, which I only recommend if you're like very high body fat, because if you're already lean, you can't really get away with the 2,000 calorie deficit without losing muscle. But set your calories so that roughly you're 1,000 calories under your maintenance. But the thing you need to take into account is that when you decrease from, let's say, 3,500 at maintenance to your 2,500 calorie deficit, Since you're eating less food, there's less thermic effect of food. There's gonna be less calories getting burnt through digestion, chewing, all these things decrease a little bit. And not only will thermic effect of food decrease, but your non-exercise activity thermogenesis will also increase. So random things throughout the day like talking, sneezing, laughing, doing backflips, jumping up and down, dancing, when your body registers less calories coming in, it downregulates these things a bit, which means you're going to need to overcompensate. So instead of going to 2,500, go to something like 2,300 or 2,200. Give yourself that bit of extra insurance to make sure you really are in a deficit of 1,000 calories. So once you've got your calories established, it's time to dive a little bit deeper, figure out the macros: protein, carbs, and fats. Let's start with protein. In an aggressive deficit, I do not recommend going below 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. Yeah, people on Instagram are gonna tell you 0.8 is fine, you can just have 0.8, bro. But the literature points to diminishing returns, but not a flat cutoff at 0.8. Like, yeah, you may be getting good amount of gains at 0.8, but there's still a chance that you could be getting more gains and maintaining muscle better off at 1 gram per pound, 1.2 grams per pound. So I recommend 1 gram per pound as kind of a sweet spot. And the two exceptions to this are going to be low caloric intake and high caloric intake. So if you are on very, very low calories, let's say you have your calories set to 1,300 on your aggressive diet, you may be better off at a slightly lower amount of protein, because if you have too much protein, you're gonna have no room for fats and no room for carbs. You need to have all 3 macronutrients. So when calories are super constrained, I actually recommend pulling your protein down to like 0.9 grams per pound of body weight, if it means you can have enough carbs to fuel your training session. Now on the flip side of things, if you have plenty of room to work with, if your calories are at 2,800 like mine were, you can afford to give yourself that bit of extra insurance, have a little bit extra protein, because maybe going above 1 gram per pound of body weight, maybe you get better gains from it. We don't really know, the science doesn't really know, but just in case, if it doesn't mean that you need to slash your carbs to the floor and slash your fats to the floor, have a little bit extra protein. You know, if you can still have a ton of carbs, still have plenty of fats, and make it all work in your calories, then going a little bit above 1 gram per pound of body weight, probably not the worst idea if calories are high. But fats, this is the next essential macronutrient. Your best bet will be 0.3 grams of fat per pound of body weight. Now the exceptions for this are if you've had hormonal issues in the past. Like me, I crashed my testosterone on my last prep, so I bias a little bit more fats just to give myself a little bit extra insurance. I go closer to 0.4 grams per pound of body weight, but you are most likely going to be plenty just fine on 0.3 grams, maybe even a little bit less. The true driver of diet fatigue and hormonal crashes are really just low calories. It's not as much the fats, so you don't need to have a crap ton of fats to protect yourself against hormonal issues in an aggressive diet. If you're in an aggressive diet and you're in it for too long, regardless of where your fats are, you're going to crash your hormones eventually. Fats are not the end all be all of your hormones. So 0.3 grams is plenty, but just make sure that those fats are actually coming from good sources. The most important is going to be omega-3s. This is what most people are deficient in, because you can only really get it from fish, fatty fish, and most people aren't eating fatty fish. So you can either take a fish oil supplement, have salmon a few times a week, have sardines into your diet, whatever you can do to get your omega-3s in, that's going to be key. And then aside from that, I would have some eggs, beef, avocado, nuts, olive oil. So you want to have a nice balance of polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, saturated. From there, you have the rest of your calories to fill in with carbs. So just maximize the carbs as much as you can once your protein and fat is met, because that's going to give you energy to train. And this is particularly why you want to structure most of your carbs around your training window. So let's get into cardio. Now that your calories and macros are established, the most helpful thing you can do in terms of cardio, and this is before your cut actually starts, is start building up your cardio tolerance. Start getting good at things like incline treadmill walking, Stairmaster, just walking outside, getting steps in general. These things take a little bit of time to let your body acclimate to. So the more time you give yourself to get used to maybe like 20 to 30 minutes after every workout on the incline treadmill, or like 15,000 steps throughout the day. It's gonna suck at first if you're not used to it, but if you get used to it and do it year round, you're already good to go. So you can start your cut on high calories because cardio is already high. So essentially you wanna find the most amount of tolerable cardio and step count you can do. So if 1 hour of cardio every single day makes you feel horrible, it makes you not want to diet, it makes your training suck, you should not be doing that. You should cut it down to maybe 30 minutes, which is where a lot of people tend to feel best at. And then in terms of step count, same situation. If 30,000 steps a day ruins your quality of life, do not go for 30,000 steps a day. You can be fine on 10,000 or 15,000. Once you have your cardio set to your maximum tolerable amount for your 4 to 6 week or however long you're cutting for, then you can base your calories off of that. So you may need to adjust your initial deficit size. And I know I talked about calories before cardio, but calories kind of depend on cardio. So depending on what you're doing in terms of cardio, that's gonna change what you set your calories to. So if in the off season you are maintaining your body weight, so if you were previously maintaining your body weight with no cardio at 3,500 calories, you could hypothetically add in a crap ton of cardio and then not even change your calories. Usually what's best is to do a little bit of both. Instead of pulling out 1,000 calories from your diet, pull out 600 or 700 and add in a little bit of cardio, maybe 20, 30 minutes a day of cardio. Maybe that's gonna burn an extra 200 to 300 calories, which gets you to that 1,000 calorie deficit. So keep in mind that once you have your cardio established, you may need to go back and look at your calories again and change things around a little bit. Other than that, some cardio cheat codes for you guys. A walking pad. This is the #1 thing that will just improve your ability to get steps. If you can set up a walking pad at your desk at work, if you work from home, put it under your desk, get a standing desk, just walk while doing anything else. Cardio kind of sucks when you don't have anything to multitask with, but if you can be getting work done while you're doing cardio, if you can talk on the phone, if you can just watch some YouTube, listen to some music, it makes the cardio feel a lot easier. So that's a big tip I have. And then other than that, I'd also just try to minimize excessively fatiguing cardio, like running or like really aggressive mountain biking or anything like that. Try to just stick to low intensity, steady state cardio and step count. They're gonna be your absolute best friend. Let's move on to training. This is actually something that matters way more than people think, because let's say you lose 15 pounds of body weight on this aggressive cut. If you're not training properly and you lose 7 pounds of muscle, that's cool because you still lost 8 pounds of body fat. But if you were to lose the 15 pounds of body weight and maintain all of your muscle, lose no muscle, it's way cooler because that means you lost 15 pounds of body fat rather than just 8 pounds of body fat and a bunch of muscle. You're gonna be way more pleased with the look. You're gonna look a lot leaner. You're going to just look better overall if you're training properly and maintaining your muscle mass. So the most important thing that I can stress when it comes to training is maintain good training quality. And how can you do this? Train at the time of the day you feel the most energy. Pick enjoyable exercises that you actually are happy to go into the gym and do and push hard at. Use caffeine if needed. Listen to some good music in the gym. Find a good gym that has good vibes that gets you amped to train. Experiment with your cardio timing. You know, if you're used to doing fasted cardio earlier in the day, maybe try doing cardio after training instead. You might notice that, oh, I actually train a lot better when I didn't fatigue myself with cardio earlier in the day. Consume glucose and fructose before training. These are gonna make you feel energized. They both help contribute towards liver glycogen and blood glucose, which are very important for your energy sources while training. So if you're gonna have a pre-workout meal, try to have some fruit in there along with some starchy carbs too. Just a mix of fast digesting carbs. And the last thing to try out that might be a big unlock for your training would be intra-workout carbohydrates. I personally don't really use these right now. I use them when I'm on a bit higher calories because liquid calories don't really satiate you a bit. But if you can fit this into your calories, having 25 to 50 grams of liquid carbohydrates, ideally glucose and fructose, to sip on during your lift can really help you push through maybe that second half of the lift where you start to feel a little bit fatigued, start to feel a little bit low energy, start to lose your pump. Intra-workout carbs can be a game changer for some, but if you're on super low calories, I don't really recommend it because you're kind of just wasting calories on non-satiating calories. So those are all things you can do to make sure that you're actually having good training sessions, which is gonna allow you to actually get a good stimulus and maintain your muscle. In terms of the more pedantic stuff, I would recommend training each muscle 2 times per week. So if you're training 6 days per week, you know, something like a push-pull legs rest split is fantastic. If you're training 4 to 5 days per week, upper lower push-pull legs, or upper lower, you know, and then taking your rest days whenever, that's a good way to go about doing things too. If you're only gonna train 2 or 3 times per week, It's not really ideal, but if you are gonna do that, I recommend doing a full body session every time you're in there. And yes, it may take 2 hours. Yes, it may take a little bit more than that, but if you wanna do this properly, you gotta do it properly. And if you're not training each muscle group at least 1.5 to 2 times per week on average, you're kind of putting yourself at risk of muscle loss. Try to keep that frequency up, and then also don't bias any muscle groups in particular. You're not going to grow massive delts on an aggressive cut. You're not really going to grow much at all. Yeah, you can grow a little bit if you are higher body fat and relatively new to lifting, but for the most part, the goal here is to maintain your muscle mass and not lose any muscle mass. So if you start to bias one thing over the other, you may start to lose muscle mass in the other without really actually gaining size in the thing you were biasing, because you're not in a state to be growing anyway. So train everything evenly. Don't worry about any one muscle group in particular. Do not make the mistake of not training legs. And even if you don't care what your legs look like, even if you don't care if your legs get small, this is what's going to happen if you do not train legs. And listen guys, I don't have the biggest legs in the book, right? But I train them hard every single day. What am I talking about? 2 times a week. I train them hard like an animal, because if you do not train legs, as you're losing weight, your body's gonna look at the muscles on your legs and be like, well, they're not using the muscles on the legs. He or she is not squatting. He or she is not doing leg extensions. Let's just steal from the leg muscles instead of pulling off this body fat that we wanna keep. So you're not even gonna lose that much body fat. You're just gonna get tiny, skinny legs and lose all your legs and the muscle in your legs and keep the body fat. But if you train every single muscle in your body's gonna be like, well, I guess we need all that muscle. I guess we have to pull from the body fat, which means you'll lose more body fat. You'll look leaner, you look better. So please train your legs. Don't skip them. It's just a stupid thing to do. And then in terms of training mentality, this is a huge thing. When I'm training on an aggressive cut, I do not ever show up to the gym telling myself, calories are low, carbs are low, I wonder how much weaker I'm gonna get this week. A lot of people, when they're cutting, they will show up to the gym and expect to lose strength. What do you think is gonna happen when you're expecting to lose strength? Do you think you're just gonna, oh, I surprised myself, I guess I'm actually stronger? No, you're gonna convince yourself into losing strength. What you need to do, and what I do, is I train as if I was on a bulk. I say, I'm eating a ton of calories, bro. I should be progressing. If I'm not progressing, I'm doing something wrong. I should be gaining strength every single week. And even if I don't, even if I just kind of stall and maintain lifts and maybe go up here and there a little bit, not as fast as I was when I was bulking, I'm still very pleased with that, because if I'm not regressing, if I'm not losing strength on lifts, then I'm doing something right and I'm maintaining my muscle. Which brings me to my point about if you do stall on progress, or if you do start to regress. And listen, if you're stalling, if you're just not gaining a ton of strength, that's totally fine. Do not worry, do not freak out and be like, oh, I need a refeed. It's okay. But if you're starting to really regress on multiple lifts, like a lot of your sessions very frequently, then you need to look into a few things. First thing to look into is your recovery. Is your sleep on point? Is your sleep quality on point? If it's not, fix that. If it is, move on to your actual recovery. Is your stress out of hand? Is your are your rest days not set up properly? Are you not taking any rest days? If they are okay, then move on to number 3, which is going to be other variables like your pre-workout carbs, what time of day you're working out at, just random stuff that could affect your training quality, like I was talking about before. If you're not maximizing your training quality, then you might not be allowing yourself to push to your full limits, which might be causing you to regress. But let's say all of that is in check too. The last thing to move on to is just your deficit size. If everything is perfect, sleep is perfect, your volume is perfect, your pre-workout nutrition, all this stuff is perfect, but you're still regressing, it probably just means you're in too steep of a deficit and you need to either increase your calories, mainly by increasing carbs, or you need to decrease your cardio. Other than that, make sure you're tracking everything. You should be tracking your lifts. You shouldn't be just going into it thinking like, oh, I can't really remember what I did last week. Let's just do this, feel it out, do whatever. Because then there's a good chance you're gonna regress. I would also try to stick to your same program that you were doing before you started the cut. I wouldn't just switch to like, oh, now I'm on a shred, I need to do a shredding workout routine. It's the same thing. You should still be running the same exercises that you love, the same exercises that you're continuing to progress on. Don't add in a bunch of new stuff. Don't take out a bunch of other stuff. Try to keep things basic and simple and repeatable so that you can actually track your lifts effectively and make sure that you are getting stronger and stronger, or at least maintaining strength on all of your lifts. And you also want to find your volume sweet spot. So you don't want to be doing so few and so little sets that you're not actually creating enough of a stimulus to grow and progress or maintain your muscle mass. But you also don't want to be doing so many sets and so much volume to where you're just constantly sore, you're constantly fatigued, you're showing up to your workouts still beat up from your last one, and you're going to regress if you do way too much volume. I will say though that most people that claim to be overtrained are actually just kind of tired and maybe not optimizing things that could be optimized. So definitely, like I was saying, look into all your other things first, your sleep, recovery, your nutrition, before you jump the gun and say, oh, I'm doing too much volume, I need to take away more rest days, I need to do this, I need to do that. You're probably not overtrained. And let's talk about daily structure. How should you be setting up your days? Obviously, some people have more freedom than others. Myself, I'm an online coach, so I have a lot more freedom with like how I structure my days. I can kind of work the hours I want to work. I know most people have set hours that they're working at their job, 9 to 5 or whatever, so they don't have as much freedom. But do what you can to at least somewhat set up your day to hit these few principles I'm going to talk about here for your daily structure. Number one is going to be at least 3 high protein meals daily. A high protein meal is going to consist of 25, 30, 35, 40 and up grams of protein in one meal. But you need to also make sure that you're getting at least 3 grams of leucine in that meal. This is an essential amino acid and essentially the trigger for muscle protein synthesis. What you can always do is go to ChatGPT and basically tell it the exact meal you had. Like, yeah, I had 3 eggs, 200 grams egg whites, a bunch of blueberries, some sourdough bread. How much leucine is in this meal? And if it spits out a number like 1.5 grams or 2 grams, then I would either do one of 2 things. I would have more protein with that meal, like have some more eggs, have some more egg whites until your meal is at 3 grams of leucine, or you can supplement that meal with either a leucine supplement or an EAA supplement. EAAs are essentially just a protein powder that's very leucine dense. So you can just take 1 scoop of EAAs. Yes, they have calories because it's basically protein, but you can take 1 scoop of EAAs with your meal and you may get an extra 2.5 grams of leucine from 1 gram of EA, 1 scoop of EAAs. So your 1.5 grams leucine from your eggs or whatever, plus your 2.5 grams from your scoop, you're getting 4 grams of leucine. You check the box. But you want to make sure that if you are going to have a high protein meal and you're having these 3 meals or however many meals per day, each meal has at least roughly 3 grams of leucine. It's not a hard cutoff, but aim for 3 as a minimum. Another thing is you need to make sure your meals are actually spaced, right? If you have a meal and then another meal 30 minutes later, it's 1 meal. You're still digesting the first one. Your body doesn't treat it as a separate feeding. So try to space your meals out by at least 2 to 3 hours in between each meal to actually signify to your body like, okay, we're having another instance of muscle protein synthesis. Because the more muscle protein synthesis instances you can have throughout the day, the better. And obviously there's, diminishing returns to this. Having 10 meals per day isn't like better than 9 or anything, but if you can have 4 to 5 maybe instead of 3, you might get a little bit more benefit. So try to squeeze in as many meals as you can, obviously within what fits your schedule and without cramming meals within 1 hour of each other. Lastly, in terms of protein meals, you want to make sure that one of these high protein meals is within an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours after your workout window. You don't want to work out and then just go 5 hours not eating anything. Ideally, after your workout, as soon as you reasonably can, if you want to do your cardio, drive home, take a shower, that's fine. But as soon as you reasonably can, have a good amount of protein, a good amount of leucine, and ideally some carbs too. A few other things in terms of your eating schedules, I would try your best not to force meals when you're not hungry. So for most people, the best thing to do in the morning is just to skip breakfast. If you wake up and you're not super hungry, or if you wake up and you have a little bit of a hunger, but it kind of just passes through as a wave, you're better off saving those calories for points in the day in which you're a lot hungrier. For a lot of people that may be 7 p.m., 8 p.m., or maybe it's 4 p.m. Whenever you feel the most hungry, that's when you should allocate most of your calories towards. The only thing to really make sure you avoid doing, which I've made the mistake of in the past, is saving up a ton of calories for right before bed. Because if you have a huge meal right before bed, you're going to interfere with your sleep quality. That being said, don't go to sleep hungry either. Ideally, within an hour or two before bed, you're gonna have a meal with some protein and some carbohydrates just to make sure that you don't wake up hungry. But basically what I'm trying to say is don't force yourself to eat breakfast if you're not hungry. The only exception to this would be your training window. Now, before your training, even if you're not super hungry, I still recommend having a little bit of carbs just to give yourself some available blood glucose to use during training. The same thing goes for after training. Even if you're not super hungry within an hour or two after training, try to at least get some protein and carbs in, even if it's small. One more thing I want to mention in terms of hunger is, I know this is pretty contradictory to what I just said about not eating when you're not hungry, but you also don't want to starve yourself to the point where you're eating every single meal when you're super, super hungry, because this is gonna do two things. One, it's gonna most likely create rebound hunger, because even though you ate, when you go that super, super long time without eating, it sort of builds up this internal hunger signal in your body that will still remain even after you eat a meal. And then number two is every meal is going to get treated like a huge reward for yourself mentally if you wait until you're starving. Now, this might sound fun to some of you freaks out there that are like, well, I want every meal to be a huge reward, but what's going to happen over time is you're going to constantly think about food, because it becomes such a huge rewarding part of your day, to where all you're gonna think about is food. You're gonna prioritize it over everything else. You're not gonna be able to focus on everything. You're just gonna be looking forward to that next meal. So you don't want to make your meals so rewarding and so enjoyable to where they're the absolute highlight of your day. You want to just make them just good enough to be enjoyable, but you don't want them to take over your life, because that's what's going to contribute to a ton of food focus, a ton of food noise, and just an overall worse time dieting. So even if you got a long time between meals, you don't really have an opportunity to eat Yo, that was crazy, bro. I'm leaving that in the video. Chat, clip that. Chat, that's me when I'm editing the video. I'm chat, and I'm gonna clip it and keep it in. Maybe I'll put it at the end of the video for you guys. Oh my gosh. See, I'm human too, bro. I'm not just a robot. Maybe I am a robot just because I'm so locked, bro. I never cheat on my diet. I never miss a training session. I never miss whatever. Hold on, another client thing. See, I'm locked, bro. On Team Drew, like, forget this video, bro. If my clients are texting me, I gotta talk to the clients, bro. You guys are the B team, bro. You guys are the B team. No, I'm just fucking around. That's fine. But, you know, no, clients take priority. So, all right, we're back. Nothing crazy, nothing super crucial. So we're back. So let's talk a little bit about satiety. All right, how do we actually maximize satiety? Because this is gonna matter a ton. Obviously, you can just white knuckle your way through the whole diet, never feel full, never feel satiated, and just kind of make it through on a whim. But if you're gonna be doing this for like 4 to 6 weeks, you're gonna want to feel satiated. You're not gonna want to constantly just have to deal with endless hunger. So some of my key principles for satiety are going to be food choices. You want to choose foods that are slow digesting, fibrous, high volume, have a good amount of water content, just things that fill you up in general. So what are some good options? I love things like oatmeal, potatoes, vegetables, fruit, lean meats, egg whites. These are all great options. They're gonna keep you full. You get a lot of volume. They're not super calorie dense, but they're also gonna be micronutrient dense. You're not gonna have any deficiencies. You're not gonna have a ton of cravings. And then some other foods that are not bad, but just aren't as satiating, and I wouldn't recommend structuring too much of these into your diet on a cut, would be things like rice, bread, pasta, snack foods in general, just like pretzels, chips, stuff like that, and anything that's very high fat or high calorie for a very small quantity. So things like oils, nut butters, sugar, dried fruits like dates, the raisins, things that I know people love their dates, but I would not be eating dates on a cut, because for one tiny date, it's gonna be like 100 calories, which is just absolutely insane. The amount of strawberries you could eat for 100 calories, it would fill this whole bedroom. Kind of a trade-off, because some foods that are more calorie dense are gonna leave you more satiated and full once they digest, but you kind of have that awkward window where you just first start eating like a handful of nuts, and it's such a small quantity, even though it's a lot of calories and a lot of nutrients, you're not gonna feel super satiated until a few hours after that meal when they're actually digesting. So for the most part, if you're gonna have calorie dense small things, I would at least pair them with voluminous, fibrous things. Like if you're gonna have a calorie dense meat, have it with a ton of vegetables so that you actually get to fill up in the immediate time when you're eating the meal. And then once that fattier stuff digests, then you kind of are held over for a longer period of time. And then water intake is also huge. So I love having a lot of water before my meals and during my meals. So the water before your meals is gonna make sure that you're not going into your meal dehydrated, because if you're dehydrated, you're gonna kind of eat the meal and then feel like something's missing. And a lot of times you're gonna mistake it for food, and you're gonna be like, oh, well, maybe I need more food, when really you just need more water. And then during meals, if you drink lots of water during your meals, it just fills up your stomach even more. And it's not the best thing for digestion, so I wouldn't go insane with it, but have some sips of water in between bites. You know, take your time eating, don't rush the meal, give it time to sort of set in. What you'll notice is that right when you finish a meal, you might still be hungry, but if you just kind of give it 10, 15, 20 minutes to digest, you're gonna usually feel fine. And then between meals, another great thing is just slamming like a crap ton of water real quick. Like I got this big thing right now. I'm actually getting quite hungry, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I ate about 2 hours ago, but I'm already feeling it. So watch what I'm gonna do. Okay, now what has changed in the past minute since I did that? I'm no longer hungry at all. My energy levels feel higher. I feel like I could run through a farking wall right now. Water is a drug, man. I don't know if I'm a hyper responder, but whenever I just slam a very large quantity of water in a kind of quick condensed period of time, energy levels shoot up, hunger shoots down. It helps a crap ton, and there's no downside to it. It's just water. The other great thing would be diet sodas or just carbonated drinks in general. You get some bonus points because the carbonation fills up your stomach a little bit more than just water would, and it also helps if you're craving something sweet. You know, just having a Diet Coke or something can really hit the spot. The only thing to really be careful about would be caffeine. So if you're having like Diet Cokes, Diet Pepsis before bed, there's caffeine in there. So you're gonna wanna opt for the diet caffeine-free version for anything that you're consuming after like noon, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and so on. And I know a lot of you guys out there are gonna be like, well, I sleep just fine. I have a espresso before bed and I fall asleep just fine. It doesn't bother me. I have a good tolerance. Just because you fall asleep fine doesn't mean you're getting good quality sleep. And I can assure you, if you're having caffeine before you go to sleep, your sleep quality is getting worse, even if you don't notice it. And if sleep quality worsens, ability to burn fat and maintain muscle worsens, which means you're gonna lose muscle and lose less fat. So just switch to the caffeine-free versions after 2 p.m. Once again, there's no downside. It tastes the exact same. There's plenty of caffeine-free options out there, and it'll just help your sleep a ton. And then something I would try to avoid in general would be liquid calories. So I know people love their protein shakes, their Fairlife, so like, oh, it's a great way to get protein in for low calories, but it's not satiating, right? Like let's take a Fairlife. It's 150 calories, 30 grams protein. That's great macros, don't get me wrong, it's phenomenal. But think about how much chicken breast you could have for 150 calories and 30 grams of protein. That chicken breast is gonna take a lot longer to digest. It's gonna fill you up a little bit more, or even just like egg whites or something like that. You can cook some egg whites, get the same macros, actually better macros, and feel way fuller for way longer. That liquid shot of protein is just gonna rip right through you. It's gonna get you protein, but it's not gonna solve hunger. Like you're going to be hungry after that. So same thing with like sugary drinks. Obviously sugary drinks is just stupid. Just switch for the zero sugar alternative. But in general, you know, I wouldn't be slamming like a big protein shake for breakfast. I would rather just eat a meal. It's gonna digest, you know, a little bit slower, keep you fuller for longer. So try to, in general, just stick to whole foods. Not necessarily for the sake of like, well, processed food is bad for fat loss, it's bad for you, this and that. Yeah, some processed food is very bad for you, but for the most part, you know, processed food is kind of a weird term because pretty much all food goes through some sort of process, so it's like, it's the gradient. But sticking to whole foods is gonna be advantageous because they're micronutrient dense, they're fiber dense, they're filling, and they don't have a crap ton of like additive things that contribute calories but don't contribute satiety. So, you know, if you can opt for a meal of like chicken breast and some potato instead of a protein bar, you're probably gonna be better off even if the macros are the same, because the chicken breast and potato is gonna fill you up a little bit more, give you a lot more micronutrients than that protein bar. and also the inflammatory response. If there are things in a protein bar or processed food that your body doesn't handle well, it can create some inflammation, which can create stress, which can create cortisol, which can make it harder to maintain muscle, which means you're going to lose less fat. So all in all, you want to try to keep the processed foods to a minimum, just reduce your inflammation, and a little bit of processed foods here and there is okay. Like if you want to have a protein bar between meals just to kind of hold you over, it's not the end of the world whatsoever, but you want to make sure that most of your main meals that you want to get satiety from are consisting of whole foods that also aren't super insanely hyper palatable and insanely good tasting, because it's really easy to fall into the trap during a diet of doing all these crazy Instagram recipes, doing all this wackadoodle crap to be like, oh my gosh, this is the best meal ever. I can, lose weight while eating my favorite foods of all time, eating the best tasting foods ever. That works to a certain extent, because once you pass this kind of line of like just making your food enjoyable, you start to dip into the territory of creating an addiction around foods. Whereas if you kind of keep to the basics, like some chicken, some potatoes, some veggies, and then maybe some hot sauce or something, like nothing too crazy, you're gonna finish the meal and be like, all right, that was good, but I don't really need, it wasn't so good to the point where I need more of it. I'm kind of just ready to move on with my day, So there's a balance, right? I personally really like sugar-free sauces. I use them here and there. I use sweeteners here and there, but you just don't want to go overboard with it. And another thing not to go overboard with would be like the keto, low carb, zero net carb stuff. It can mess with your digestion. They have a lot of these like fake fibers in there, and just a lot of weird stuff in there that can sort of like mess with your digestion, create some inflammation, and just make for not a great time. And then B, the calories are kind of semi-true, but also not true. When you're subtracting fiber from carbs, a lot of these companies will just treat fiber as 0 calories, whereas if there's soluble fiber in there, it's actually 2 calories per gram on average. So most people are going to be yielding more calories than what the label says. So it's kind of like semi-BS, those things. If you want to have like a tortilla or two a day, or a couple of those keto slices of bread, here and there, it's not going to make or break your diet whatsoever. But if you're building in like 8 tortillas a day, and you're having like anabolic French toast with like 6 slices of keto bread every single morning, you're probably consuming way more calories than you think. And you're also probably, quite honestly, wrecking your digestion, because like 1 slice of keto bread can have like 10 grams of fake fiber. Same thing with tortillas. The tortillas can have like 15 grams. So you might be having like 100 grams of artificial fibers per day, which is by no means good for your digestion. So try to keep that keto stuff to a minimum if you can. And another good way to just reduce your food noise in general would be to stick to a meal plan. Just stick to the same basic meals every day. What I like to do is I have my structures of my meals. Like for example, one of my meals is like a salad with usually chicken and sweet potato and just like a bunch of veggies, but maybe one day I swap the chicken out for tilapia, or maybe one day I swap the sweet potato out for regular potato. You can make some small swaps here and there, but if you keep the general structure of your diet the same, it's gonna reduce these feelings of like throughout the day thinking about like, oh, what am I gonna have for my next meal? I wonder what I'm gonna make. Oh, I guess I gotta go to the store to get this. Well, I kind of want to make that. I'm kind of craving this, and it just makes things a lot easier when you can just stick to a repeatable meal plan that works, that keeps you satiated, and that checks all your boxes. All right, so let's talk about recovery and supplements. Outside of training and nutrition, sleep is the most essential, powerful thing that you can be utilizing on an aggressive cut. You want to be sleeping a minimum of 8 hours a night. You want to make sure those are high quality sleeping hours. If you can sleep a little bit more, if you can get 9 hours, 10 hours, bonus points, because that's less time spent during the day being hungry. Being asleep is basically time to have your hunger signal shut off. Like you're not thinking about food, you're literally unconscious. So the flip side of that is, if you get 4 hours of sleep, you have to spend 20 hours out of the day tired and hungry. Whereas if you get 8 to 10 hours of sleep, that shortens your day a little bit. Maybe you don't have as much time to be productive and do whatever, but you don't have to spend all this time being hungry and fatigued. Like you're gonna be well rested, you're gonna have a great day. And low sleep just biologically will raise your hunger. It increases your ghrelin, decreases your leptin. Ghrelin makes you hungry, leptin makes you full. So you do not want those things all out of whack. So if you notice you're waking up a lot, an hour or so after you go to bed, like early on in the night, you have a lot of awakenings, I would look into a few things. I would look into like your ambient light coming into your room, noise, temperature, and if you're unable to get true quiet or like darkness in your room, just get a sleep mask and some earplugs. And then this is super slept on, no pun intended, bro. Let's go. Super slept on. Keeping your sleep and wake time consistent, right? So if that means going to bed at 10 p.m. and waking up at 6 a.m., you want to keep that consistent as possible on a day-to-day basis. And yes, even on weekends. You don't want to be going to bed later on weekends and then sleeping in. So the best thing you can do is find your 8 to 9 hour window that works best for your schedule and just stick with that every night, regardless of the weekday, regardless of your schedule. And you might be thinking, well, like, what about my social life? You know, I still want to go out on the weekends and party. You're doing a 4-week aggressive cut. You're going to have to sacrifice a couple things, you know? If not going out till 2 a.m. means having a successful cut, I'm very happy to make that trade-off. Like, I mean, I personally don't like going out anyway. I don't like partying and drinking and all that. I don't drink at all, actually, because I'm above that. I'm actually no, it's not that. I just don't enjoy drinking. If I enjoyed it, I'd probably be getting fucked up every weekend, bro. But if you're super concerned about like having to sacrifice, you know, going out or social lives or drinking, then you shouldn't be doing an aggressive cut in the first place, right? Like, you should not be consuming any alcohol on this aggressive cut. You should not be doing anything that's like going to mess with your progress. Obviously, other than like work and family, this aggressive cut is going to be the main focus of your life, all right? You're not going to realistically be able to balance 8 million other things and get the best results possible. You can get decent results, but if you want the best results, like your boy got, bro, I stayed to the exact routine every single day, bro. Like I went on one trip during this phase. I went to Florida to see my friends for like 4 days, but I still kept everything pretty locked in. Like, I didn't really change my sleep and wake time. My nutrition stayed extremely dialed. I was training every single day I was there. Like, I made sure that this was a priority in my life. And if you're not willing to do that, then you should not be doing an aggressive cut. A 500 calorie deficit or less is gonna do you great. It's just gonna take longer, but you can kind of afford to like be a little bit more free with it. You know, you have a little bit more freedom. But if you're gonna go aggressive, you gotta make it a priority. So other things in terms of recovery, I would try to minimize overall stress and cortisol if you can. If your cortisol is super high, you just feel constantly stressed about stuff, maybe look into ashwagandha. It probably wouldn't hurt. And then in terms of other supplements that I would just recommend taking in general, the first thing you should do is go to Chronometer, plug in your full day of eating, and find what you're deficient in. It's gonna tell you which vitamins and minerals you're deficient in, then either add those into your diet through foods that contain them or supplement them. Some supplements that I see very commonly needed in diets are going to be the B vitamins, particularly B1, which helps with energy, and then vitamin D. Especially if you're not getting a lot of sun, you probably most definitely want to be taking a little bit of vitamin D. Other than that though, a fish oil, if you're not consuming fatty fish, you definitely need to take a fish oil supplement if you're not consuming fatty fish, because that's the only way to get omega-3 fatty acids, which are essential for your health. And then magnesium glycinate, this is a good one to take before bed. It kind of helps you relax, it helps your muscles relax. It's just something that not a ton of people are getting in their diet. And then some other like less common deficiencies I see, but still common in a lot of clients, are going to be calcium, zinc. But yeah, those are kind of the only that are jumping out at me right now in terms of common deficiencies. But just run through your Chronometer meal plan, see what you're missing, and just supplement it. Creatine, of course, 5 to 10 grams. I'm not going to talk much about it. It's going to help you kind of maintain fullness. I've been taking it. I like it. I don't know if it bloats you or what. Yeah, my face is a little bit bloated, and I don't know if that's from the creatine or just from whatever, but in general, creatine is going to be more net benefit than downside, so I would take creatine. Electrolytes also are going to be important. When you're on lower calories, you're probably consuming less electrolytes through your diet, so especially around your training window, make sure you're having adequate sodium, Make sure you're having adequate potassium throughout the day. And then if you're taking magnesium before bed, you're pretty much good on the magnesium. One other thing to consider in terms of supplement would be EAAs, which I talked about earlier. So if you are noticing that situation in which a lot of your meals don't have a lot of leucine, even if they have enough protein, then I would look into an EAA supplement just because it's super leucine dense and an easy way to get extra leucine into your diet. The ones I take are from My Protein just because I'm sponsored by them, so I get them for free. I haven't tried other EAA supplements from other companies, so I can't be like, oh, My Protein ones are way better than other companies, but I do know that they taste pretty good. The amino acid profile is really good on them. Like I get 2.3-ish grams of leucine with one scoop, which is really, really good. It's only gonna run me like 40 calories for that scoop. So if you want to get some from My Protein, use my code DREW, D-R-E-W, on their site. Just go to their site, type in EAAs, and you'll find them. But yeah, EAAs are something to consider if you're having low leucine meals. Or also if you're going long periods of times without meals, like if you're intermittent fasting for a long period of time throughout the day, I would maybe have an EAA, 1 or 2 scoops just to prevent some muscle breakdown. Or if you're training fasted, or also training like early in the morning and only having carbs before the gym, I would also have EAAs before the gym too, or during your workout. And then also after your workout, if you know you're gonna go a long time without a meal, I would try to have some EAAs, maybe like a double scoop after your workout, but they're not super essential, they're not crucial. You can totally get by without EAAs, just having high protein meals in general. All right, so now that that's all covered, let's just go over a general timeline for how to structure this. For most people, if you're already somewhat lean, you're not just like super, super high body fat, I would recommend 4 to 6 weeks max, because anything longer than that, you're kind of putting yourself at risk for muscle loss and just excessive diet fatigue. So I would try to keep it to that timeline as a maximum. And in the first 1 to 2 weeks, you're gonna wanna try to be a little bit more aggressive. So in terms of scale weight, I would look for at least 3 pounds lost per week on average. The reason I say 3 and not just like 1.5 or 2 is because you're gonna be losing a lot of water weight, a lot of glycogen, a lot of food mass in general. So your scale weight is going to decrease even if you're not losing a ton of actual body fat and body weight. So even if you're losing 3 to 4 pounds per week on the scale, even like my first week I lost like 6 pounds, I'm only really losing 2 or 3 pounds of actual fat. So that first few weeks, expect a crap ton of scale weight drop, and then once that's up, you want to kind of level out between 1.5 to 2 pounds per week lost on average. So, but just be careful not to be too reactive with it. If you see one morning you wake up like 0.5 pounds or 1 pound heavier than you did the day before, doesn't mean you need to slash your calories. When you're in aggressive deficit, your water weight is going to fluctuate like crazy. Your physique, the look is also going to fluctuate like crazy. So don't expect a linear body weight curve. It's going to look more like this. So you need to keep an eye on averages. Like look at a 1 week, a 10-day average, and kind of just use a wider scope, use a wider lens and be like, all right, it's been 2 weeks and my weight's kind of just staying the same. Yeah, then maybe you need to pull your calories down. Or if it's been like 3 weeks and you're down 20 pounds, then it's like, all right, maybe you should have a little bit more food, do a little bit less cardio, But overall, just monitor it, aim for that like 2 pounds of true tissue loss sweet spot. And that's gonna be kind of a nice way to keep that progress going, but not be too ahead of yourself to where you're just losing muscle and crashing down to the floor. If you do plateau, I will see a lot of people make the mistake of like, oh, I need a refeed, I need a diet break. A mini cut like this, a 4 to 6 week aggressive cut, is just not the context to be doing a refeed or a diet break. It's such a short time window to where a full 1 to 2 week diet break, you're just wasting half of the cut. It's like you're not in an aggressive cut, you're just at maintenance at that point. And then like a 2 or 3 high carb days are not going to do anything for you long term either. I recommend if you plateau, decrease calories. Do not increase them. Decrease calories or increase cardio and just keep pushing. Once the 4 to 6 weeks are over, then yeah, a diet break could be a great tool, but not during the aggressive cut. But to be honest, I would definitely go into this expecting a bit of metabolic adaptation to occur. It'd be very unlikely for you to be able to run the whole diet on the same amount of calories and be losing the same amount of weight. Eventually your NEAT is going to down regulate a little bit. Your thyroid could even down regulate a tiny bit. And you need to stay on top of that by just kind of decreasing calories a little bit when needed. But if you notice your calories are just like tanked to the floor, then like maybe take a step back, look at your blood work, get your thyroid looked at and all that. But overall, expect a little bit of metabolic adaptation, and also expect the fat and flat stage. You know, you're going to not like how you look, most likely, for at least the first half of this cut, because you're losing all your fullness. You're not getting good pumps in the gym anymore because your carbs are low, but you haven't lost a ton of fat yet. So you're almost gonna look smaller, and you might even look fatter, because when you're bulked up and massed like full glycogen, your muscles are pressing up against the skin tighter, to where you're kind of like, your skin looks tighter and leaner because your muscles are just like filling it out better. And then you kind of get this like flat, depleted state when you're cutting, to where, you know, you haven't lost a ton of fat, but you're not looking great. So just expect that you're not gonna look good the first few weeks, and don't be like, oh my gosh, I lost a ton of muscle, like I need to call it quits. No, it's totally normal. Once you hit that like 3-4 week mark, when you really start leaning out, you're gonna be like, yo, this is crazy. I feel like I'm getting bigger, I'm feeling leaner. Like, I promise you, the fat and flat stage, it sucks, but it's worth it. Now let's say you get 2, 3, 4 weeks into this diet and your diet fatigue is through the roof. You can't even have the energy to get out of bed. Every single meal, it's like not doing anything for your satiety. You're just constantly starving. Then maybe you need to dial things back. Now, it's also very easy to convince yourself of these things and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so diet fatigued, you know, like maybe I need to up my calories, like it's getting, my energy's lower, my hunger is higher. You're going to be hungry and you're going to be tired. It's just, if it gets so out of hand to where your life is just getting like ruined, then I would dial it back, because that's a sign that you're kind of crashing yourself into the floor, and you might be very much at risk for muscle loss and creating a situation in which you just metabolically down-regulate like crazy and just end up in a crappy situation. So just keep an eye on diet fatigue in general. For the most part, you're pretty much fine, usually longer than you think you're gonna be. It's very easy to jump the gun on it, but just try to be objective and honest with yourself. If you're like, all right, I'm in a really bad spot right now, like this is not good, then I would dial it back. Increase your calories, decrease your cardio, do whatever. Last couple pointers here, I would just say, don't start something you know you can't sustain. Like, if you know you can't sustain 1,800 calories and 45 minutes cardio a day, if you just know yourself and you're like, you know, really think about it, be like, can I do this every day for 6 weeks, regardless of what comes up? Because that's another thing. People assume that nothing's gonna come up in these 6 weeks that you're dieting. Things are gonna come up. Shit's gonna hit the fan. Shit's gonna happen. You're not gonna feel exactly how you did at the beginning of the diet when you're 4 weeks in. Things are gonna change. So be realistic with yourself. Say, even if life gets in the way, even if stressful things happen, am I still going to be able to maintain X amount of calories, X amount of steps, X amount of cardio, X amount of training sessions per week? If the answer is no, reevaluate your plan. Maybe just budget yourself a little bit more calories or a little bit less cardio and give yourself a little bit more time. But if you're going into this knowing that, yeah, I'm the man, I'm a dog, I can handle whatever this plan is I set out for myself regardless of what happens, then yeah, go for it. All the power to you. That's what I did, and it paid off. Last thing to mention, this is a very important thing to think about, because a lot of people will set up a 4 to 6 week aggressive diet with the idea of doing it to get lean for a vacation or lean for an event or lean and then be able to have some cheat meals. This is a huge mistake. The reason I say this is because when you get to the end of this diet, your hunger is going to be insanely high, most likely. Your energy levels are going to be insanely low. And if you immediately transition to vacation time, cheat meals, having fun foods, having calorie dense foods, not tracking things, just living life, you're not going to ever feel satiated. You're going to overeat every single meal that you eat. You're going to be eating all this calorie dense stuff. You're not going to be able to control yourself. You're going to absolutely get hit with like, oh, this food tastes so good. I haven't had good food in so long. I've been dieting. You're going to lose your progress. I guarantee it. I've seen it happen to so many people. If you go into a trip or a vacation or a bunch of cheat meals with all this diet fatigue built up, you're gonna overeat, you're gonna gain fat, you're gonna ruin your progress. So this is exactly what you need to do. You need to build in time at maintenance in between the diet and the vacation or the cheat meals or the events or the parties or whatever it is. I recommend 1 week, but 2 weeks is gonna be way better. 2 weeks of maintenance after the diet before the trip. And when I say maintenance, I don't mean untracked eating whatever maintenance. I mean, you still treat it like you're dieting. You just increase the amounts of your diet foods that you're eating. Stick to your same meal plan, but just increase your carbs, increase your fats a little bit. You know, not crazy with the fats, but just like a little bit more for satiety. And just give yourself the time to let your body cool off. Over those 2 weeks, you're gonna notice cravings start to decrease, hunger starts to decrease, energy starts to increase. Your energy expenditure will increase, which means eventually you're going to be able to even eat a little bit more calories without gaining weight because your NEAT upregulated, thyroid upregulated. So those like 1 to 2, even 3 to 4 weeks in between a diet and like untracked vacation fun time are so key to allow you to actually maintain the results. Because what's the point if you diet down for a trip and then just lose it all? Like, there was no point. You just did all this effort. You're gonna just put stress on your body from these huge fluctuations. So give yourself the time to cool off. Big mistake is like, all right, the diet's over, let me have that thing I've finally been craving and then this other thing. It's like, yeah, if you want to have a little something and you know you can just have a bite, it's okay. But sometimes what happens is you have one bite of that crumble cookie and it's like, oh my gosh, this tastes better than anything I've eaten in the past 6 weeks. I need 5 more crumble cookies in my stomach right now, and then I need to go to all you can eat sushi, and then I want that too, and I want this, and it's never good, guys. So build that maintenance week in. That's everything I got for you. All right. I know I didn't talk a lot about what I did on my diet, so I'll just give you guys the brief run through on my basic stats. I started at 192 pounds. I did my first week at 2,800 calories, 45 minutes of incline treadmill per day, 20,000 steps a day. And then after that first week, I noticed the 45 minutes of incline treadmill was super fatiguing. So I bumped that down to 30 minutes, but I kept my step count at 20K. And yes, the cardio is included in the step count because I wear my Apple Watch for the cardio. And then I also pulled my calories down with it. I went down to 2,600 to fix that offset. So I basically kept my deficit size the same. A little bit less cardio, a little bit less calories, net balance equal. But that second week on my diet, that's when I was away on vacation in Florida. So I actually underate some days just because when I travel and my schedule is kind of all over the place, and I'm pretty good at keeping my calories under control when I'm traveling or on vacation. So I figured I might as well take advantage of it a couple of days here and there. I'm like, you know, the day's over, I'm at 2,200 calories. It's like I could go to the gas station, get a couple protein bars to hit, you know, 2,800 or whatever I had planned. But it's like, if I just go to bed, is it the end of the world? That's the other one point I forgot to mention. If you finish out your day a few hundred calories under your budget, you don't really need to eat your full amount of calories if A, you've already hit your protein, B, you've already hit your fats, and then C, your training quality doesn't suffer from repeatedly like way under eating. You're kind of just doing yourself more good than harm by just getting kind of that extra edge. Like if you're not hungry for the extra 400 calories you have built into your plan, just go to bed. I wouldn't recommend being like, all right, let me save them for tomorrow, or let me like save up all my calories for like Saturday or Sunday, just because that creates a binge restrict cycle. But yeah, if you're a little bit under one day and you kind of feel fine and energy is fine, then yeah, I would just take advantage of it. Once I got back from that trip, I steadied out at my 2,600 calories with 20K steps and 30 minutes cardio, and I ran that for, you know, the rest of the 4-week period. I'm going on like week 5 now, and I'm kind of running the same thing. And then after this 5th week, I do go on some trips and stuff, so that's when I'm kind of calling it with the aggressive diet and going into a moderate like maintenance here and there, a small deficit. But yeah, that was basically my protocol. My training split was push-pull legs with 1 rest day per week. In terms of my actual daily structure, pretty much every day I had the same schedule. So first things first, I would wake up, and before I do anything, before I even go on my phone, I would walk for like 30 to 40 minutes outside, get some steps in. And then after that, I would get back home and make my pre-workout meal, which was typically, when I mean typically, I mean basically every single day. Some rice cakes, some fruit, some honey, and a little bit of EAAs. Then I would go train. After training, I would do my 30 minutes cardio, then get home and have my post-workout meal, which was a veggie egg white omelet with some oatmeal, and then a few hours later, I would have a protein bar, and then another few hours later, I would have my like chicken sweet potato salad. Then a little bit later, I would have beef, eggs, and some cauliflower rice, and maybe like some beans or refried beans. And then last meal of the day would be like a Ninja Creamy. And then if I had a little bit extra carbs left over, I'd have like a very small bowl of oatmeal before bed just to stay satiated, like an hour before bed. I would just try to be as productive as I can between meals to get my mind off food. So client calls, client work, just like all this, whatever I can do between meals to distract myself was super key. And then just throughout the day, I would go on walks to get my steps. But that's pretty much my daily schedule on the cut. Down about 13 pounds in total. Strength went up on a few of my movements, strength maintained on some of my movements, and then maybe a couple movements here and there I regressed a tiny bit. But overall, when you're looking at the general picture of are you progressing or regressing, as long as like overall you're maintaining and maybe progressing a little bit, you're good. It's okay if you regress on like 1 or 2 lifts here and there. It could just be situational, but yeah. Hope this helps, and I hope you guys kind of are able to replicate this process. You know, I know it's kind of late in the spring, early in the summer, so maybe if you're in a situation where it's like, shoot, I want to get lean for the summer, but I kind of am like too late, then you might not be too late. You know, an aggressive cut can be really effective if done properly, and the other huge benefit of it is it's super motivating. If you're gonna cut really slow, then yeah, it's a very healthy way to do things, and it's easy to maintain your muscle when doing so, but sometimes it's demotivating because you like don't see progress until like a month and a half, 2 months in. But if you're really aggressive with it and you're just like, yo, let's get a move on, you start to see these changes. Like, you know, once you're past the fat and flat stage, you're waking up like every other day with new veins, new striations. Like, it's kind of crazy. So and it's super motivating. You're like, yo, this actually works. Like, I'm actually getting crazy results. It makes you want to diet harder. It makes you want to like lock in more and not cheat. So yeah, I think aggressive diets kind of get looked at in a bad light. I used to look at it in a bad light until I did this one and realized that, you know, you can be totally fine if you do it properly. So yeah, guys, happy dieting. Hope you enjoyed. That's the video for this week. And then next week, after I'm back from my trip, I will do a regular old, you know, lifting video. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.